Hello and welcome to the Dinosaw for week 29. Another 7 curious, interesting things I saw last week. Forgive the echo, by the way, just about to move house. Everything is packed. Very exciting. Lightspray is the first thing, and as you can see, they are spraying on a shoe, a running shoe trainer, as we would call it in the UK. This is by Swiss sportswear brand On, that is their name, and they're using 1.5 kilometers of filament to spray onto this mandrel, or last I think they call it in shoemaking. It takes 3 minutes from start to finish, which basically means you can chuck these things out pretty quickly. It uses no glue, there is no stitching. Obviously the sole itself is not actually sprayed, that's the thing you start with, but it also reduces a lot of the cut-offs and therefore waste, and also it reduces weight. So it's a good running shoe. So I don't know whether this will be legal for Olympics or whatnot, but that's a very cool thing. I really want to see that the robot actually spray directly onto a foot. I think that would be pretty cool as well. So there you go, Lightspray. Let's talk about the Microsoft thing that happened. So this is the CrowdStrike snafu, as I've called it. I think underplays it a little bit. Apparently they're estimating it will top $1 billion worth of damage. Why did it actually happen? It was one line of code. And this is the line of code. This is pointed at, this is by Zach Voorhees, I guess you would say that. And really what that's saying is read from this address. Now, if you know your memory addresses, you'll realize that that memory address is quite low. It's right at the beginning of where the memory should be, and you certainly shouldn't be reading from that, especially if you're a system driver. So when your PC starts up, it loads the system drivers and then it does all the other stuff, like it literally loads Windows and loads the operating system. Now, if it can't go past this, because basically what it's doing is it's saying read from a part of the system memory that you shouldn't be reading from, it shuts down the machine, and therefore the rest of it doesn't actually boot up. So that's why it blue screened everything, because it couldn't get past this very early part of the boot up sequence, and it was just really that little piece of address that shouldn't be that low. It should have been something else. It should have been checked, quite frankly. But there you go. That's what it was from. A simple one line of code. So yeah, we'll see how this unfolds in the next couple of months to how anybody might be claiming through legal channels for the damage that caused. This is CoulombFly, I guess that's what it's called. This is I've been following these for years. These are sort of drones that can levitate. They're micro drones, and they're solar powered micro drones. Now, up until this point, they've needed little wires attached to them. They were tethered. But this one, this is actually from China's Beihang University, and it uses a special electromagnetic or electrostatic rotor, which you're seeing in front of you here, rather than electromagnetic rotor, which uses magnets and heaviness, basically. It also, therefore, doesn't create a huge amount of heat. This is a thermal imaging of the motor actually working. So this is somebody just removing the piece of paper from the solar panel, and as you can see, it flies. Now, the reason it's got this square around it is because it doesn't actually have any way of steering itself, because they haven't put that on there yet. It weighs a bit too much, but it can keep itself in the air using solar power, and that's pretty cool. So this is a micro aerial vehicle, or a MAV. We'll probably be hearing more of these in the future. They've actually made a really small one that's 8 millimeters across as well. So, but it doesn't really have the solar power thing on it. That is tethered. But expect to see MAVs being something that maybe are flying around the environment, but these sorts of things can fly into the atmosphere, and essentially they can fly forever. There you go, quite interesting. AI transcendence is a phrase that I thought was pretty cool. I learned this week. So this is when an AI model transcends the intelligence from which it was actually trained. Now, normally if you're doing a large language model or something like that, you put lots of data in and then it tries to replicate that data, i.e. replicate is the most important part. It doesn't all of a sudden become hugely more intelligent than the data it's got. However, with this study, which is from Cornell University, they used an input set of chess players. Now, you can measure chess based on skill levels, and that skill is measurable. So they took lots of people with a certain chess level, they trained this model on it, and they actually got then the AI to play those people, and it kept beating them, i.e. it has somehow learned to be better than the data it was actually used as the input. Now, what they actually figured out was going on, which is fairly obvious, is for each expert, all of their expertise is lumped into one kind of super expert, And therefore the super expert can be any of the experts. So really the paper is really about calling it a AI transcendence, giving it a name, and then sort of messing around with how they are training it. And basically what you're seeing here is different temperatures, different sort of creativities, like how risky is it going to be. So really interesting. At least they're sort of putting some headway into essentially making geniuses from relatively normal data. There you go, kind of interesting. On an AI tool basically search I was doing this week, I found this, just randomly found it. It is awesome. And also awesome name as well, Osgore Oza. What a great name. However, what this does is you do need to be a little bit nerdy to use this. It's a command line interface based thing, and you need something like Llama, or you certainly need FFmpeg if you're going to do any video stuff. But what it does is you just point it at a folder, and it will read the folder, all the files in the folder. It will actually go into the file, see what the file is, it will recognize what's in it, and it will rename the file based on what it found in the actual file itself. It works on documents, it works on images, it works on movies, and as you can see here, it's just going through some images, and it's renaming them all based on what is in the actual thing itself. So that is pretty cool. Again, you do need to be a little bit nerdy to actually use that, but hopefully we'll see a version of that. I think this should be built into an operating system at some point. But that's pretty cool. Qantas are doing some really long haul flights. If you're going from, I think, there you go, New York to Australia, Australia to New York, and or London, 24 hours is pretty much how long you're in the air. And that can actually have a big toll on your jet lag and how you feel. They've got a big process or a lot of initiatives of how to sort of make you, essentially less jet lagged when you arrive. And this is the latest one. There's a big study on the circadian rhythms and using light and what they call melanopic illuminance. So this is using light, but using essentially light to tweak the body. And depending on whether you're red or blue, or basically the frequency of the light, you can make people sleepy or more alert. And really what they're doing is that they're just replicating the sunlights and the sunset using different lights and different frequencies, which I think is cool. So they can either sort of put you to sleep, so to speak, they can wake you up, or essentially they can get you ready for landing. So there you go. If you're on one of those flights, they've got a whole thing which is about food, when they bring out food, what they bring out, whether you exercise, whether they play music, what's on the entertainment. They've got lots of things they're doing. This is just the latest one. So there you go. Lots of people involved in this, by the way, lots of universities and people. It's on Qantas on Airbuses. And finally, we have the drone parachutes. I saw this on LinkedIn, I think, but researched it. It does exist. Well, it sort of does. It's a prototype. It's a thought at the moment. And it's an experiment from the Italian Institute of Technology and INAIL, I guess that's how you would say that, INAIL, whatever that stands for. However, this is a really interesting kind of over-engineering of something that's very simple, i.e. a parachute. They have this plan to save people from heights, which is a good thing, obviously. That's what they're focusing on. And this is, as you go down there, you would then deploy this drone who would then fly out of your backpack with carbon fiber, whatnot, and would save you and fly you to safety. Now, why you wouldn't just use a parachute, I'm not really sure, but there you go, technology. Why not use it when you can? But I thought that was interesting. Not quite sure it's the right thing we should be using when you've just got a parachute and an altimeter and it can deploy it automatically, but it deploys it in 1 second apparently. I want to see the demo of this actually working, and I can imagine whoever's going to test this, it's squeaky bum time when you do. But there you go. Hopefully that was interesting. Hopefully it was useful. Next week, I might not be able to do one of these because I might be in the air at that point, but I'll try to. If not, I'll see you the week after in my new house. Other than that, I'll see you soon.